Hello, hi everyone. Welcome back to Woo Can Cook. My name is Wesley, and this is a show where we are slowly cooking our way through all of the food from my childhood. Today we're adding to our TV and film hack series with a request that a lot of folks have been asking for, which is a Chinese Egg Foo Young. More specifically, we'll be taking some inspiration from this comically racist scene from the 1970 Disney film The Aristocats.
Shanghai, Hong Kong, Egg Foo Young. Fortune cookie always wrong. That's the hard one.
Jesus fuck. Okay, anyway, for those not familiar, Egg Foo Young is a dish that actually does originate from traditional Chinese cuisine as a sort of leftover egg scramble, where restaurants essentially throw all of their leftover scraps into a wok with some eggs, then scramble it like a frittata and top it with a savory sauce. More commonly though, most folks will likely know this dish as a Chinese American classic, because it's found all throughout the States as a breakfast and brunch staple. What a lot of folks might not realize though is that a truly traditional Egg Foo Young is actually deep fried, not scrambled, giving it a much more crispy and fluffy texture than the more commonly found scrambled versions. Okay, so let's get into it. So, to kick things off, I'm starting off with our traditional 4 cloves of crushed and minced garlic, followed by 1 inch or about 1 tablespoon of finely minced ginger. If you've tuned in before, you'll know that these 2 ingredients come up in most of my savory dishes, as they are often the fundamental aromatic ingredients that we add as we build out layers of umami. Moving on, we're getting to our veggies next. I'm starting off by chopping up some green onions, separated by whites and greens. The more durable whites will be going right into our egg mixture, while the more delicate greens will be set aside as a finishing garnish for a bit of color. Next up is half of a sweet white onion here. I'm chopping this up into a large dice by keeping the root end on while I chop. This is going to hold everything together so that we can get a nice even dice. Then I'm setting this aside as we move on to our eggs. For our eggs, we'll need 4 eggs in total, which I'm whisking up to combine, and then seasoning with a pinch of kosher salt, a tablespoon of Shaoxing wine, and a 1/4 teaspoon of cornstarch. The Shaoxing wine is going to give us that hint of sweetness that you'll likely associate with a lot of wok fried eggs, and the cornstarch is going to keep things from turning rubbery in our aggressive deep fry. You'll notice otherwise though that we're keeping things pretty simple here for our eggs, because if we add too many things at this point, it's going to have some trouble binding together in the deep fry. Moving on to our sauce mixture, I'm assembling the gravy that's going to be spooned on top of our finished egg next. This is 4 tablespoons of soy sauce and 1 tablespoon of sesame oil to start. Then we're adding a few layers here to build out some complex sweetness to our sauce. This is 1 tablespoon of Shaoxing wine, then 2 tablespoons each of dark soy sauce and oyster sauce, followed by a single tablespoon of hoisin sauce. Now, I realize that this is a lot of ingredients, so if you need to leave a couple of these out, it will be okay since we are stacking quite a few flavors here. Just keep in mind that the more ingredients that you sub or omit, the further away that you will stray from the true intent of our sauce. Next, I'm rounding things out with 2 tablespoons of doubanjiang for a bit of heat, plus 2 cups of stock. Then in a separate bowl, I'm combining 2 tablespoons of cornstarch into a slurry, and we're moving on to our chicken. Okay, so I'm dicing up some chicken thigh here for our protein element, but at this point, definitely feel free to go with whatever happens to be in your fridge. Tofu, flank steak, ground mince, or cod would all be great alternatives. I'm keeping my marinade pretty simple again to reduce moisture. This is 2 tablespoons of soy sauce plus a 1/4 teaspoon of white pepper and cornstarch. Then I'm setting this aside to marinate for 30 minutes, or if you're impatient and hungry like me, wait for 5 minutes, then get tired of waiting and just start cooking. Over on the stove, I have my wok heated as hot as possible, then I'm adding 4 tablespoons of peanut oil and, as always, long yao for your non-stick surface. Then I'm adding my chicken to the wok, being careful to hold back as much of the liquid marinade as possible, and I'm searing the chicken for 2 minutes for a crisp exterior. Then I'm flipping each piece once it's crisped up, searing for an additional 1 minute, clearing some space in the wok, and finally adding our garlic and ginger aromatics. I'm making sure that this stuff has solid contact with the oil in the wok to bloom out their aromatic flavor. then tossing everything to combine once it's fragrant. Then I'm pulling my chicken out of the wok, giving it a wipe down, reheating, and adding my sauce mixture. Now, we don't need to do too much here since nothing really is being cooked. I'm mainly looking to burn off a little bit of the alcohol from our Shaoxing wine, plus get a little bit of a reduction going to concentrate things a bit. I'm adding my cornstarch slurry here to thicken things up, then reducing until I've reached the level of thickness that's to my liking, and finally seasoning with a pinch of kosher salt to taste. Lastly, I'm wiping down the wok, then adding 12 ounces of fryer oil and letting this heat up to 375 degrees F for our deep fry. While that heats up, back over on my cutting board into my largest bowl, I'm combining my eggs, cooked chicken, onions, the whites of my green onions, and a handful of bean sprouts. Then we're giving all of this a toss until combined, and we're ready to fry. Back over on the stove, I'm very gently ladling a spoonful of my egg mixture into my fryer oil. Then I'm letting this fry for 40 seconds before flipping, followed by an additional 60 seconds on the second side. Then I'm repeating with the remainder of my egg mixture. This should yield about 4 to 5 in total, making sure to reheat my oil to 375 degrees F before adding the next batch. It's also worth mentioning at this point that the deep fry process here is pretty tricky given how loose the egg mixture is, so don't be discouraged if you mess this part up a couple of times. Remember to also account for carryover cook here as well, because the eggs are going to continue to cook after you pull them out of the fryer. Even if it looks like it's a little bit loose when you pull them out, that's okay because it's going to set while it cools down. I'm finishing this with the greens of my green onions and a healthy spoonful of my gravy mixture, and we're ready to eat. Now, I'll be honest, I have not had much Egg Foo Young in my life because it's generally one of those Americanized Chinese dishes that just don't come up very often in Chinese home cooking. That said though, holy shit, this is good. It has a wonderful deep umami from our gravy, a nice bite from the chicken, a bit of crunch from the veggies, and a super airy yet crispy texture from the deep fried egg. If you have ever had Egg Foo Young and thought that it was a little bit rubbery and overcooked, this is going to be the solution to all of your problems. I'll also reiterate how adaptable this dish is too. If you don't have some of these ingredients, use whatever you happen to have. Bell pepper, zucchini, flank steak, tofu, or ground beef, literally any or all of these would work great. Okay, so that's it everyone. I hope you enjoyed this and I hope you give this one a shot with some of your own leftovers. I know I'm stoked to have found something to use my leftover bean sprouts for because those things are constantly spoiling on me. If you haven't yet, definitely check out some of the other dishes that we've done in our TV and film hack series. There are a lot of them. We're live streaming every Monday, Tuesday, and Thursday at 6:30 PST right here on YouTube with new recipes out every Friday. So be sure to subscribe for all of that. As always, like, comment, subscribe, press some buttons, and I'll see you soon. Bye.
We talk for hours and hours about the sweet and the sour and how your family's doing okay. And leaving, getting a taxi, kissing the backseat, tell the driver make the radio play. And I'm singing like, girl, you know